Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DJ 360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.
Thanks for joining us again. It's 365 days after the abduction of over 200 girls from Chibok in Borno State. That singular event brought Nigeria into a global, or rather made Nigeria a global signature of all eyes. The mood was high. The protest also rocked major cities and streets in the country. It looked as if all of the efforts of the government as well as civil society organization wasn't just enough to rescue the girls. I'm joined now by Comfort OGUNYE. She's a legal practitioner as well as an advocate also for the female folks. Thank you very much for finding time to join us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. What's the mood for you? 1 year after the abduction of these girls, did you see this coming, that it was going to take this long?
Let me acknowledge that the mood for every Nigerian, and not just the immediate families of the Chibok girls, their relatives or their parents, is that of anger, that of apprehension, anxiety and desperation. And so virtually the question on every lip is that 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months and 1 year, when will these girls return? Will they ever be found? And if they are found, will their lives ever remain the same? So, as you rightly said, it's a nagging question. And the practical reality is for us to address these questions as honestly and as sincerely as we can. We do appreciate to a very large extent that some efforts have indeed been made to rescue the girls. There have been a lot of security reports, quality security reports, which we also read in the media as relating to the specific location of where are these girls. There has been some insinuations that the girls are still locked somewhere in Sambisa Forest. Some say they are in Goza, some say they are still somewhere around the Chad border. But the critical question for me is that given the commitment, the 6 weeks commitment by the present administration to finding these girls, of course you do recall that the military was capacitated in terms of giving them support, giving them more funding, getting more efficient equipment to look for these girls. And the report so far is that the military had done their best. They've done so well in closing in, and of course we do know that even in the course of trying to rescue these girls, some of the 14 local governments that were captured by the insurgents were eventually recovered and reclaimed from them. So so for a lot of Nigerians, that was some efforts. But the critical question is, 1 year after the over 200 missing girls, in fact, between 2014 and now, over 2,000 women and girls have been kidnapped along with these girls. So the critical question that remains on the list of every Nigerian is that, when will these girls be found? When will they be rescued? Is there hope for their rescue? And if there is hope, is there things we should do that we're not doing? And then what do we need to do to continue to encourage the military forces, the indigenous communities around Borno and Yobe State, and of course giving also cooperation from Chad and our neighboring countries and the Niger Republic on how best we can approach or re-strategize to ensuring that these girls are found.
But let me ask you, given the experiences that we've had in the past.
Yes.
We've seen a situation where, okay, they've been abducted for a year now. Given the nature of the abductors, you know, the fact that they are professionals in suicide, in suicide bombings, and killing and maiming people. Given the efforts of the federal government in the recent past, what they call the 6 weeks regional force, you know, the federal government is now saying that they practically have captured back all the territories, you know, initially occupied by these people. How are you still optimistic? You also recall that there was a time that certain young ladies were being used, you know, as suicide bombers. How optimistic are you that these girls are still very much alive?
Well, there's an adage that says, never give up and never say never. So if you ask me, well, I will say that with God all things are possible. But I'm optimistic. But I also want to locate my optimism within the context of current global reality relating to issues around insurgency and terrorism. You just recall that about 2 days ago, the Sultan of Iraq, the Islamic State, captured about, I think, 120 school children, still in the same manner that the Chibok girls were captured. And what they did was, some of the girls were given out, as ransom. Those of them who were released were given, as ransom, those of them who came from rich families. And a lot of them were actually taken, and they were integrated into the terrorist network, and so they became part of. And so, connecting that to what has happened recently, of course, I have very, very, very deep-seated fear and apprehension that these girls may actually be recruited as potential or even active terrorists, because some of we had issues around some bombings in Kano and some northern states, I think sometime last year, and the security reports revealed that some young girls were indeed involved in some of these this bomb attacks. So my fear is that many of these girls may indeed be used not only as shields, but to carry out terrorist acts. And then a lot of them, as the leader of the Boko Haram sect said initially in a video clip, that some of them were given out in marriage, or some of them were sold into slavery. So I have a lot of fear, I have a lot of apprehension, and sometimes I want to be very enthusiastic that, okay, maybe because as a lawyer, I know that legally speaking, you don't give up issues around around kidnap, abduction, maybe people who also abscond. You don't, in law, you don't give up on, or even missing persons generally, you don't give up on them until about 7 years. Even when people are declared missing, you don't just assume that you keep trying until about 7 years. So now I said, I know that 1 year is a long time to cope with the trauma, with the anxiety of your loved one, children who are missing. But I want to say that we shouldn't give up. And I do believe that I want to share the optimism of the leader of the Bring Her Back Girls, the coordinator, Mrs. Obi Ezekwesili, that indeed, if all efforts are intensified, that these girls may indeed be found before May 29. And if not, Nigerians are also hopeful that maybe part of the positive outcomes of the new regime of the regime of the president-elect will be that, okay, fine, he's made a commitment that if these girls are still alive, he will do everything possible, including building or even reinforcing the capacity of the military, both Nigeria and, of course, the regional effort from other countries to ensure that we find them.
As an individual in that statement, because the question they're asking is, what exactly is it going to do differently, given the level of involvement, of course, that is relative though, of the present administration, the efforts of the military, the combined efforts of the Western region, what they call the regional African forces that are helping Nigerian military in northeast Nigeria. What change or difference do you see the new administration bringing into this 1 year long search for the Chibok girls?
Well, I think that the president-elect was honest enough to say that, look, I'm not going to do a miracle in getting these girls back. So don't expect that as soon as I'm sworn in 2 months, I'll rescue the Chibok girls. But I think that what is important is that he's made a commitment. He's saying that, look, if there are gaps, for instance, if the military or the regional force that you mentioned, if they need more support, if they need more equipment, if they need more funding, that he will do all that is possible to ensure that these girls are found. So if you still coming back to the issue of optimism, I think that we should keep hope alive. We shouldn't say that because in the last 1 year the efforts have been futile. It's not yielded result. But I still do believe that from the reports we got from the military, our military, and with the cooperation they've had from other the regional forces who are working, I think that they have assured Nigerians that they are closing in, and that indeed they already know where some of the girls are. But realistically, I think that some of the girls, maybe over time, some escaped. So I'm actually looking at a situation where some girls may indeed escape on their own, because I wouldn't know how it's going to play out, but some girls may still escape of their own, especially those of them who are not psychologically in sync with terrorist acts or being integrated into the world of insurgency. So some of them may escape, and indeed, if the military continues in this fashion, in the way they are going, because of course there's been a consensus that our military have done very well, even in peacekeeping missions in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, even in Sudan. So if they've done so well, I do not think that trying to rescue a group of school children, particularly in Borno and Yobe, and some areas that have been taken, that has been under terrorist insurgency, shouldn't indeed be a huge challenge.
Let's just take some time out on the street to find out the pulse of Nigerians as we get the fate of the Chibok girls after 365 days in captivity. Let's find out what some Lagosians have to say.